Mike, we're good to go?
You're good to go.
All right, I will call the meeting to order. For the record, I'll introduce those that are in attendance for the town. We have the planning board members, Joe Rosito, Chuck Abbey, Don Snyder, Don Bloss, Mike Maurizio as our ad hoc, Cindy Chamberlain is the planning board clerk, Steve Procopio is the director of codes enforcement, Mark Parrish is the planning board engineer, Neil Germain is the planning board attorney, Nancy White is a town board member and our liaison, and Judy Boyke, town board member, is trying to. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Bloss, would you lead us off?
Yes, I will. I pledge allegiance
to
to
the
flag
flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. And next item is the approval of the minutes. Have the board members had a chance to review? Any questions or comments?
No.
We have a motion for
I
approval.
move for approval. Don Snyder?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second
Abbey.
by Chuck Abbey. I'll do a roll call. Mr. Rosito.
Yes.
Mr. Abbey.
Yes.
Mr. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries. As always, the planning board will accept public input on any active application currently before the planning board. Due to the fact that this meeting is being conducted virtually, anyone wishing to comment on any active application should submit those comments to the planning board in writing. Written comments should be communicated to the planning board by email, fax, or postal service. All comments will be entered into the record and distributed to all board members. And you can find the information for the email, fax, and postal address on the town's website, and I will post on Facebook page when we're concluded with the meeting. And that brings us to the agenda item for Cindy Stone. This is continuation. We opened a public hearing at the last meeting, and Tim Coyer is here representing the applicant, and the applicant, Cindy, is here herself. So Tim, if you'd like to update us on what you have recently submitted.
Yes, good evening, Tim Coyer. The only changes that we made per the last meeting where we added a couple notes specifically to the second page of the site plan itself. The one discusses that all dog waste must be stored in a container as dedicated by Waste Management Company when being placed to the street for weekly pickup. We specifically reached out to Syracuse haulers, and they did dictate which kind of container they wanted us to use and how we were supposed to dispose of the dog waste specifically. The other the other note that I added to the map was that the applicant owner is aware of the existing town ordinance, section 58-9 and section 58-12, and will completely comply with said ordinances. Those two sections deal with the noise ordinance with the amount of time the dogs are allowed to bark or be outside barking at all, which was about 30 minutes, I believe, from the last minute. But we are aware of those, and she's going to restrict herself to that code and comply with it completely.
Thank you. Board members, questions?
I'm for Snyder.
Go ahead, Don. None for Snyder? Joe, any questions?
Not right at the moment.
Mr. Abbey?
No, not also at the moment. One comment about a couple of 3 letters we did receive, with good praise against for Cindy and the business. So it was nice to hear.
Thank you. Mr. Bloss, any questions or comments at this point?
I'm good to go right now.
All right. I do have a question for the applicant. One of the things that was brought up from public input was you care of the animals, the dogs after hours. And Cindy, I don't know if Cindy, you're the best one to answer that. What happens when your employee goes home at night? How are the animals taken care of at that point?
I can answer that for you.
Please.
I'm on my property at night, so basically what happens in a normal boarding facility, they will take them out at their last time, and then they go home for the day or for the evening, and then they come back in the morning. So I will be here on the property to take care of them if there's anything that needs to be addressed.
Okay, thanks. And that's pretty typical, you said, for a kennel operation.
It's not typical actually for a property that doesn't, isn't not on their property. Normally boarding kennels don't have someone staying overnight in the place of business.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, we need a seeker.
I think first you need to close the public hearing.
Oh, yes.
So you can just do that yourself. Declare it
And
closed.
at this point, I will close the public hearing. And now we need a seeker, correct?
Now you need it.
Mr. Rosita, would you propose the standard seeker, please?
Yes, I propose a standard seeker, and it's a form of motion.
Do we have a second?
Second from Snyder.
Roll call, Mr. Rosito.
For the seeker?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss,
Yes.
and I vote yes, the motion carries. Neil, would you put together a motion for approval, please?
Yes. You're going to move for a resolution approving the application known as Cindy Stone, 9360 Bartell Road, proposed grooming shop and kennel. This approval is strictly conditioned on the following. 1, the color schemes and renderings and/or elevation as presented by the applicant to the planning board in regards to this application shall be incorporated by reference into the site plan and the board's approval thereof. Accordingly, the actual project must substantially conform to the items as presented herein. 2, the applicant's site plan indicates a projected increase in the average water flow of 40 gallons per day. The planning board recognizes the need to mitigate or offset the increased stress in the sanitary system in accordance with the town's policy regarding said offset and or mitigation, and requires a payment of $4 per gallon, or in this case, $160 to be paid to the town. Said payment shall be due and payable before the earlier of the issuance of any required permit or 30 days from the date of this approval. 3, the planning board reserves the right at any time to verify the actual water flow to verify that it conforms to the projections supplied by the applicant herein.
That's in the form of a motion. Do we have a second?
Second. Chuck?
Second by Mr. Abbey. Roll call, Mr. Rosito,
No.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss,
No.
and I vote yes, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck with it. Next item on the agenda is for E&E Enterprise. This is for the property at 7350 Shiloh Road. This is site plan. The applicant is with us.
Yeah, this is Lisa. Last name is Wenberg. I see it's not up on the screen there, just for your references. I'm from Keplinger Freeman Associates. I believe this is the first time you guys are seeing this. So I just have a brief description unless you had questions beforehand.
Go ahead with the description, please.
Okay. So a short history, E&E Express Trucking was purchased by E&E in April of 2017. They would like to improve the property for truck storage. This is basically just for employees to park their vehicles when they're at home. There's going to be no on-site maintenance at all. And they have installed some millings over the existing gravel surface that was there during the summer of 2017 before being stopped by the town. So existing conditions include the project site that's located, I heard you guys discussing earlier, on Schuyler Road off Taft. The parcel is about 3¼ acres, mainly hard fill and gravel. contains approximately 1.5 acres of DEC and federal wetlands. The project doesn't propose to disturb any wetlands, but is located within the 100 DEC wetland buffer zone. We are currently working with DEC to obtain a wetland permit. The site was filled previously, or by the previous owner, between 2012 and 2015, judging from aerial photography. So they are proposing a 3,600 square foot metal building, parking for 18 tractor trailers and 20 cars. They're going to improve the existing gravel and paved surface by the proposal is asphalt millings. Going to add fence along Schuyler Road and an access gate. They are proposing to improve the entrance from Schuyler Road, and that will need to meet DOT standards. And remove any extra gravel surfacing and convert that to lawn areas with the overall intent of reducing the impervious surfacing on the site. So there was a teleconference with DEC and Army Corps this past Monday. So they said that since the entire site is within a regulated area, they want to reduce impacts as much as practical. All runoff from paved surfaces are to receive some treatment either by swale or rain garden. They wanted to add a simple fence or boulders along the wetland boundary. They wanted to reduce the amount of paved surfacing further by reducing car and truck parking, mainly within 50 feet of the actual wetland buffer or the actual wetland boundary. The owner has agreed to look to reduce the truck and car parking areas. The owner has agreed to provide water quality treatment for pavement runoff. The owner has agreed to provide fencing along the wetland edge. And so the new plans, when they're submitted, will reflect the comments from DEC and Army Corps. So that's my brief description.
All right, we'll open up the questions from the board. Mr. Aceto?
No questions at the moment, but I did count the parking spaces and it looks like you have 21, unless you don't count the handicap spot.
Well, the handicap spot that's striped out wouldn't count, but if the other ones are, then we'll take care of that. Yeah.
If that one isn't included, then there's only 20.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Abbey?
Just a question about the wetland delineations there. We're working on getting maybe a 50-foot buffer approval. Is that correct?
I'm gonna actually have Ed chime in on this one because he actually spoke with the EC on Monday.
Okay.
If he's still there.
Here, could you hear me? I have
Okay.
a very poor internet connection, but DEC.
Ed, excuse me, can you give your full name for the record, please?
Yeah, Ed Keplinger, Freeman Associates. When I spoke with DEC on Monday, since the entire site's within the 1-foot wetland buffer or the improved area, they wanted to show a 50-foot wetland buffer line, and they'd like us to try to reduce impacts within the 50 feet of the wetland boundary. So they're most concerned about the impacts immediately adjacent to the wetlands.
When I'm looking at the car parking areas, that one swipe comes right up next to it almost.
Yeah,
Show your parking.
we're going to reduce the parking. The one thing we have to be cognizant of is that we need to have enough room for trailer tractors to come in and be able to function within the site. But by reducing the amount of car parking, we'll be able to pull the paving back from that northerly line. We may not be able to pull it back 50 feet, but we'll be able to pull it back maybe 20 feet or 25 feet. That's what they're looking for. They just want us to reduce the impacts adjacent to the wetland boundary.
Okay, well, look forward to that new plan.
Sure.
Thank you.
Is that everything, Chuck?
Thank you.
Mr. Snyder?
Yeah, I have a couple. I take it that this terminal, there's no transfer of freight at this location?
No, they do all off-road or off-site trucking. They're, I guess you would call them a leased trucking company, where they once they leave this facility, they may not come back for a couple of days or a couple weeks, and they would work throughout the Northeast, even all the way down to Florida and Texas.
Okay.
So this isn't a facility where trucks will be coming in and out of daily. There won't be a lot of truck traffic
Well,
generated.
Yeah, I did see where they're talking about doing a traffic study or a traffic count.
Right. Yeah, that was requested by the county, but I don't know if they have an understanding of what this facility will be. But we were going to have some discussions with the county about that.
Okay. The other, obviously, when we were just talking about this about another case, millings are great for a unmarked parking lot. The drawing looks nice with all these nice lines for trucks and for cars. One snow plow and those lines are all gone. So I don't know yet. As I say that, I know that the DEC would like not to have more porous service. So I think that's something that somehow we need to look at. And the last thing is I happen to be let's make it look a little different than a truck terminal, by maybe some plantings, at least along the road, that make it look like we care about what people see when they drive by. I'm not recommending necessarily that it has to be a wooden closed fence or anything like that. But I think it would be nice if we saw a little bit of plantings or something along Schuyler Road. That's all for now.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, Don. Yeah, I would just piggyback on the landscaping a little bit. I know that the county made that a recommendation as well, just to dress up that front a little bit. Other than that, I don't have any additional comments. Mr. Maurizio, anything?
Oh, nothing from me. Thank you.
Mr. Parrish, anything at this point?
No, we'll get a set of comments to him based on some of the things we've heard tonight and the planning board's request.
Thank you. Mr. Jermaine, anything?
No, all set. Thank you.
Mr. Procopio?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. All right, that'll conclude this item for now. And we'll move on to the last item. This is-
Chairman,
Yes.
did we discuss Melfi? Was that on tonight?
Is it?
I think it was on for just to close the public hearing.
Oh, yes, you're right. I'm sorry. Yes, it was added on. So Melfi, I will close the public hearing on that application, and that's all we're going to do at this point this evening, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you, Neil. The next item on the agenda is for Marzullo Landscaping. This is for a site plan for the property at 9160 Brewerton Road. The applicant in this case is my nephew, so I will be abstaining from any actions on this one, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to Deputy Chair Snyder to conduct. Don?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I think, can we have a little explanation of what it is you would like to do in this particular situation? And then I've got a number of comments to talk about before we open it up to the board.
Hi, thank you. It's Tim Coyer again, Iannuzzi and Romans Land Surveyors for the applicant. Joe Marzullo, Marzullo Landscaping, currently runs his landscaping company out of the existing building located here at 9160. We were here back in 2015 and got the original building and parking area approved for site plan purposes. As the years have gone by, he's been, as you can see on the plan, extending his gravel area into his side yard and the backyard. that was one of the things that triggered the requirement of coming in here for a site plan. Per the original site plan back in 2015, he wasn't going to have so much gravel and so much of a parking area, but obviously now he does. He didn't realize that he wasn't supposed to do that, but he's here to do that. While we're here, he's hoping to add an addition to the which way is north, to the east side of the building. We show it back there, about 40 by 40. He's looking to add that. He's also looking to add utilities to the building, specifically water and gas. One thing that we had to go through because of all the gravel that he added to the site specifically was we went through full SWIP. We got an engineer involved. That's what the sheet 3 is of our site plan. Did a full grading plan, SWIP, everything, so that he can comply with the disturbance areas. I think Mark, we gave everything to Mark. Obviously, we're still waiting. We got to get some comments eventually here and address whatever those comments will be. But the big thing is he wants to add the 40 by 40 addition to the site in the back of the building. And obviously, we got to clean up the SWIP requirements. The only other thing I just noticed from the previous approval from 2015 that I forgot to add to this is he never paved the 30-foot strip in the front of the driveway. I didn't realize, I didn't put that on this new set of plans. I'll have to add that for the next submittal. So he'll have to add that 30-foot strip of asphalt drive in the front of the, at the front of the driveway.
All right, that brings up where I think I'm coming from. In looking at the property, I wondered where that was. We did some review of our records, and a site plan that was approved back in 17 or so said that that was supposed to be done.
Yep.
The other thing is I believe there is still an open permit. I believe there is no C of O on the first part of the first building that was built. So I think that what we should be looking at is having the requirements for the first site plan cleaned up and accomplished before we dig into another site plan. I'm not assuming that anything was done negatively, but I believe in good faith, we need to have those things cleaned up first before we look at a second piece. The other thing is a letter came today from the next door neighbor saying that his raised bed sanitation system is not working as it should because of the amount of fill that has been placed. So I think I'd also think we need to look at the amount of fill that was placed. We do have a fill permit requirement in our town, 10 yards or more than 10 yards. I don't think there was a fill permit pulled. So I think we need to look at that. So my recommendation is that we just set this aside for a minute. I'm assuming, Tim, that your applicant will make good on the first site plan that was approved that hasn't been completed, and the permitting, see if, C of O, et cetera.
Yep. I can have Joe address those two comments so that we can get back in front of the board with a completed site plan from the original approval. And I'll look into the complaint about the neighbor's septic and the fill that was brought in.
Okay, I'm looking at saying that not just a comment about the issues, but I'm feeling that we ought to have those addressed and taken care of before we dig into.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think what Tim just said, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're going to address those issues and clean them up.
Yes.
Okay, and you've asked for time to do that.
Yes.
So you can, proceed on both tracks. But what I think you're saying, Tim, is that you'll correct the issues from the previous site plan. I'll take the thumbs up to mean yes, because you have to be audible because it's all right. Thank you.
Yes, I'm going to have the client address those comments, specifically the driveway, and get the C of O cleaned up before we come back.
Sounds great. That's all I've got. Any board member comments at this point?
Chuck, I just had one. I was looking at the original, I think it was the original site plan application dated April 20. Is that the last one? Do we know? At any rate, in looking at that one, the description has on for the addition is listed as a 20-foot by 40-foot. Now on the drawing, it's a third bigger than that. So which one is correct?
Oh, that could be my mistake. I might have put 20 instead of 40 by 40. That's probably my mistake as a typo on the application.
The drawing says 40 by 60.
I'll double check what it's supposed to be.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out.
Wait. Our current drawing is 40 by 40 addition.
Okay.
Yes.
Our current drawing is 40 by 40. I believe that's what he wants. I believe I had a typo on the application. The original site plan was 40 by 60.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
The other thing I noticed is on the application, the second page, item 9, maximum number of employees on the site, number of off-street parking spaces, and any signage. There was no comment on any of that. So I think, Tim, if you'd ask those questions, and also, because obviously we're going to talk about a little landscaping in front, and that might be a good place for the advertising for the sign or whatnot.
Okay. Yep.
More comments from the board?
What's that?
Don, you okay?
No further questions, Don.
Okay. Joe?
I'm all set, thank you.
Michael?
I'm all good, thank you.
Okay. So at this point, we're done with this item for today.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder.
Yeah.
That concludes our agenda items under board discussion. Let me go through the roll call. Mr. Rosito,
Yes?
any discussions?
Nope.
Mr. Abbey,
No, all set. Thank you.
Mr. Snyder,
None at this point.
Mr. Bloss.
We're all set.
The only thing I have, it was brought to my attention that there was a question on Facebook, and this is, Steve, for you. Somebody was asking when they will be able to pull a building permit for home improvement. And I think you're doing that now currently, right?
Yes, correct. We're accepting applications through the Postal Service. They're being reviewed and permits are being issued.
So they submit it through the Postal Service, and they can call your office with any question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Marizio,
No, I'm all set, thank you very much.
Mr. Parrish, anything?
Nope, nothing here. Thank you.
Mr. Jermaine,
All set. Thank you.
Mr. Procopio, anything?
All set, thanks.
All right, that concludes our meeting. Good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night, everyone.